There exists in the shadowed corridors of cinema a figure who haunts us, not with jump scares or grotesque imagery, but with something far more insidious, the cold precision of absolute control. Dr. Hannibal Lecter stands as a monument to humanity's deepest dread. The predator who wears our skin, speaks our language, and understands our hearts better than we understand them ourselves. He is the nightmare that doesn't chase you through dark hallways but sits across from you at dinner, making pleasant conversation while his eyes catalogue every tremor in your voice, every micro-expression that betrays your terror. What makes Hannibal truly horrifying isn't the acts of cannibalism that have become his trademark, though those images burrow into our psyche with nauseating permanence. No, the real horror of Hannibal Lecter lies in the mechanism of his mind, a perfectly calibrated instrument of psychological predation that has stripped away every human weakness and replaced it with crystalline, merciless logic. He represents the evolutionary endpoint of human intelligence, divorced from human compassion, a being who has transcended emotion not through lack of it, but through complete mastery over it. The weaponization of understanding. Consider what we celebrate as emotional intelligence, the profound ability to navigate the turbulent waters of human feeling, to sense the unspoken currents beneath social interaction, to reach into another person's experience and pull forth understanding. It's a gift that binds communities, heals wounds, and creates connection in a fractured world. We teach it to our children. We value it in our leaders. We recognize it as one of humanity's defining characteristics. Now imagine that same gift in the hands of a hunter. Hannibal Lecter possesses emotional intelligence in its purest, most terrifying form. He reads the human heart with the precision of a master surgeon examining an X-ray, identifying every fracture, every point of weakness, every hidden chamber where pain echoes in the darkness. But where others would use this insight for healing or connection, Hannibal uses it for something far more sinister: the methodical dismantling of the human psyche. He doesn't empathize with suffering, he catalogues it. He doesn't share in joy. He observes it as one might observe the behavior patterns of laboratory animals. Every smile, every flinch, every hastily concealed moment of vulnerability becomes data, processed through the cold machinery of his intellect and filed away for future exploitation. When he looks at you, he isn't seeing a person. He's seeing a complex mechanical system of fears, desires, traumas, and defenses. And his mind is already calculating exactly which lever to pull to make the entire structure collapse. This is horror on a cellular level, the knowledge that someone can see straight through you, can access the locked rooms in your mind where you've hidden your greatest shames and deepest fears, and can weaponize that knowledge with surgical precision. The inhuman logic of the perfect predator. What separates Hannibal from the chaos of lesser monsters is the glacial perfection of his reasoning. While other villains rage and storm, allowing passion to cloud their judgment and create opportunities for their downfall, Hannibal operates with the dispassionate efficiency of a chess grandmaster playing against children. He is never surprised, never panicked, never thrown off balance. His mind works through probabilities and contingencies while others are still, reacting to the immediate moment. This absence of emotional turbulence creates a vacuum where human predictability should exist. We understand anger, fear, jealousy. These are emotions that follow patterns that can be anticipated and countered. But Hannibal exists outside these patterns. He feels nothing that he doesn't choose to feel, reveals nothing that he hasn't decided to reveal. Every word, every gesture, Every seemingly spontaneous moment is calculated with the precision of a mechanical clock. You cannot read him because there is nothing to read except what he wants you to see. The true horror emerges when you realize he is always 3 moves ahead, and you don't even know you're playing a game. In the suffocating tension of his interactions, you can feel the presence of that superior intellect the way prey animals must sense the presence of a predator. An instinctual understanding that you are outmatched, that the outcome has already been determined, that your struggles are merely entertainment for a mind operating on a level you cannot begin to comprehend. Your emotions, which should give you depth and resilience, become nothing more than handles for him to grasp and manipulate. Your human warmth becomes the heat signature that allows him to track you through any darkness. The dissection of Clarice Starling, Nowhere. Is Hannibal's predatory intelligence more perfectly demonstrated than in his psychological evisceration of Clarice Starling? Their interactions pulse with a horror that bypasses the visceral and strikes directly at the existential. Creeping realization that every conversation is simultaneously a violation and a revelation. When Clarice first approaches his cell, she believes she is the investigator, the one in control. She has her questions, her professional distance, her FBI training. She doesn't yet understand that the moment she steps into his line of sight, she has become the specimen, and he is the one conducting the experiment. Hannibal sees everything, the carefully maintained composure that barely conceals desperate ambition, the hunger for validation from father figures who will never appear, the childhood trauma that pulses like an infected wound beneath the surface of her professional demeanor, the shame of poverty and rural origins that no amount of achievement can quite erase. He sees the architecture of her pain, and with the patience of a master craftsman, he begins the work of taking it apart piece by piece. The quid pro quo arrangement he proposes sounds like fairness in exchange of information, a professional transaction, but it's a lie so elegant it becomes its own kind of artistry. Each piece of information he offers about Buffalo Bill comes wrapped in psychological razor wire. He gives her the clues she needs, but the price isn't just answers about her past, it's the slow, agonizing excavation of every buried hurt, every carefully suppressed memory, every part of herself she worked so hard to transcend. Tell me about the lambs. Clarice, 5 words that echo like a death knell, because she knows and we know that he's not asking out of curiosity or compassion. He's found the precise center of her trauma, the wound that has never healed, and he's pressing his thumb into it just to watch her face contort. He extracts her pain the way he might extract a confession or a secret or a piece of information, methodically, inexorably, with the cold satisfaction of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. And the most horrifying aspect, she has to participate. She needs what he knows, so she must allow this psychological vivisection. She must sit in that chair and let him peel away her defenses layer by layer, while he remains behind his bulletproof glass, untouchable, analyzing her reactions with the clinical detachment of a researcher documenting an experiment. Every session leaves her raw, exposed, hollowed out, and him, unchanged, unmoved, already planning the next incision. The mask of civilization, perhaps the most deeply unsettling aspect of Hannibal's horror, is how perfectly he mimics humanity. He isn't a slavering beast or a visibly deranged madman. He's cultured, refined, sophisticated. He discusses classical music with the knowledge of a true connoisseur. He appreciates fine art. His manners are impeccable, his conversation witty and erudite. He moves through high society not as an interloper, but as if he were born to it. As if refinement and taste were his natural habitat. But beneath the veneer of civilization, behind the charming smile and the cultured references, there is something utterly alien, a consciousness that has observed humanity from the outside and learned to replicate its forms without ever truly inhabiting them. His politeness becomes obscene when you understand its true nature. Every thank you, every gracious gesture, every display of good manners is a costume worn by something that has no genuine connection to the values those manners represent. He's learned to simulate warmth the way a brilliant actor learns a role. Except the performance never ends, and beneath the mask there is no real person, only the cold, analytical mind of a predator that has learned to dress itself in human clothing. This creates a unique form of horror, the uncanny valley of human interaction. He looks right, sounds right, behaves correctly by every social standard, but something is fundamentally wrong. You can feel it the way you might feel a drop in temperature or a change in air pressure before a storm. The wrongness radiates from him like a frequency just below the threshold of conscious perception. When he compliments you, when he shows interest in your life, when he seems to display kindness, these moments carry the psychic weight of being observed by something that is categorizing you, assessing your weaknesses, deciding whether you're useful or merely consumable. His charm isn't a bridge between souls. It's camouflage that allows him to get close enough to strike. The architecture of escape, the horror of Hannibal's escape from custody, crystallizes everything terrifying about his character into a single, nightmarish sequence of events. Lesser villains would have broken out through brute force, or blind luck, or the intervention of allies. Hannibal's escape is something else entirely. It's a masterpiece of planning, patience, and predatory cunning that transforms human overconfidence into an opportunity for liberation and carnage. From the moment he's placed in that makeshift cell in Memphis, he isn't panicking or raging against his confinement. He's observing, calculating every guard rotation, every procedural weakness, every individual personality becomes a variable in an equation he's solving in real time. When the opportunity presents itself, when the overconfident guards make the fatal mistake of giving him a moment of perceived vulnerability, he doesn't improvise. He executes a plan that has been forming in his mind like frost forming on glass, beautiful, intricate, and deadly dot. The violence of his escape isn't frenzied or emotional. It's precise, controlled. Every motion serves a purpose. Every action flows into the next with the efficiency of a well-rehearsed performance. He doesn't kill out of rage or panic. He kills because these deaths serve the logical requirements of his escape plan. The gore and horror are byproducts of necessity, not expressions of feeling. And then, the final touch that elevates the escape from violent breakout to psychological masterwork. He carves up one of the guards, wears his face like a mask, and walks out past emergency responders who see only what they expect to see: a wounded officer being loaded into an ambulance. He has transformed human perception itself into another tool, another exploitable weakness in the defenses between himself and freedom. The message is clear and chilling. No prison can hold him, because prisons are built to contain creatures of emotion, beings who will eventually rage, despair, or make mistakes. Hannibal is something else. He will wait, he will observe, he will calculate, and when the moment comes, he will slip through every defense as inevitably as water finding cracks in a dam. The philosophy of the hunting, his interactions with the FBI. Hannibal reveals perhaps the most terrifying aspect of his character, his ability to reduce the chaos of human evil to cold, mechanical principles. When asked to help profile Buffalo Bill, he doesn't respond with horror at the crimes or moral outrage at the suffering inflicted. Instead, he dissects the killer's psychology with the clinical detachment of a pathologist examining tissue samples. He covets. That is his nature. In those few words, Hannibal strips away the noise of revulsion and fear to expose the fundamental logic underlying a pattern of horrific crimes. He doesn't get lost in the emotional labyrinth that traps normal investigators, the visceral horror of the acts, the empathy for the victims, the moral weight of confronting such depravity. He sees only the pattern, the mechanism, the underlying principle that makes sense of seemingly senseless violence. This is the ultimate horror of his usefulness. He understands monsters because he is one. He can navigate the twisted logic of serial killers because he operates from the same emotionless clarity, the same ability to process human suffering as mere data rather than tragedy. The FBI needs him precisely because he lacks the emotional responses that would interfere with pure analysis, but this absence of feeling is exactly what makes him so dangerous. He becomes the perfect consultant for hunting monsters because he can think like them, can intuit their patterns and predict their behaviors. But this understanding comes at a terrible price. The recognition that he belongs on the same side of the bars as the killers he helps capture. He is the darkness that fights darkness, and the victory feels like defeat, because it requires engaging with a mind that operates outside the boundaries of human morality. The existential threat Hannibal Lecter represents something more philosophically disturbing than a simple movie villain. He embodies a terrifying proposition, that emotion, the very quality that makes us human, that allows us to love and connect and find meaning in existence, is actually a weakness, a vulnerability that superior intellect can exploit and overcome in the ruthless logic of the thriller genre, where survival depends on staying ahead of threats and maintaining control in chaotic situations. Hannibal demonstrates that detachment wins. While others are paralyzed by fear, energized by rage, or blinded by passion, he maintains perfect clarity. His opponents bring their whole, feeling selves to the confrontation. He brings only the parts of himself that serve his purposes, leaving behind anything that might create weakness or vulnerability. This creates an existential horror that goes beyond the immediate threat of becoming his victim. He forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. What if our capacity for feeling, our empathy, our compassion, our emotional depths makes us fundamentally inferior to something that has shed these qualities? What if the price of true power is the sacrifice of everything that makes life worth living? He doesn't just threaten to kill us. He threatens to prove that our humanity is an evolutionary dead end, a genetic liability that will always lose to cold, calculating intellect. He suggests that the future belongs not to those who feel deeply, but to those who feel nothing at all, or at least to those who have learned to switch their feelings on and off like a utility, using emotion as a tool rather than experiencing it as a reality. This is horror that lingers long after the movie ends. That seeps into your understanding of human nature and leaves you questioning whether empathy is strength or weakness, whether feeling makes us beautiful or merely vulnerable. The eternal predator decades after his creation, Hannibal Lecter remains cinema's most unsettling villain, not because of what he does, but because of what he represents. He is the predator that evolution couldn't create, but imagination could have. Being with human intelligence amplified beyond the constraints of human emotion, operating with perfect efficiency in pursuit of goals that serve only his own inscrutable purposes. He haunts us because he could be sitting across from us at any moment, hidden behind a mask of charm and cultivation so perfect that we'd never see the predator until the trap had already closed. He terrifies us because he understands us better than we understand ourselves. And that understanding isn't a path to connection, but a weapon pointed directly at our most vulnerable places in the end. Hannibal's true horror isn't that he kills or that he cannibalizes his victims. It's that he represents the triumph of intellect over humanity, logic over feeling, calculation over compassion. He is the nightmare version of human potential, what we might become if we stripped away everything soft and warm and kind, leaving only the cold machinery of pure reason operating in service of pure selfishness. He wins not through strength or luck or external intervention, but through the inexorable logic of superior mind meeting inferior preparation. And that, ultimately, is the horror that keeps us awake in the darkness. The suspicion that in the contest between feeling and thinking, between heart and mind, between humanity and its coldly rational opposite, the monsters might be the ones who have evolved beyond our weaknesses into something we can never hope to defeat, because they don't just want to destroy us, they want to prove that they were right to become monsters in the first place. And every time we watch Hannibal Lecter outsmart and ultimately triumph over those who oppose him, a small, terrible part of us wonders if maybe, just maybe, he is